This is Intelligent Agents in a Multi-Agent Society, an EIN 6645 capstone presentation. The project was created by Andre Jameson and Mike Toner. In this video, we'll be covering creating agents, creating plans, running the simulation, and other tips. The scenario involves an attack on an Iraqi police training facility right as the recruits are exiting. Meanwhile, the hostiles are getting into position for an attack. This includes one watching from a tower,
a car bomber that's going to come from a tunnel, 3 gunmen that will get atop the building, and then another suicide bomber on foot.
The car bomber is the first to make a move, and once he gets into position, he detonates, killing the majority of the people around him. From then, the attack ensues from above, and also the other bomber comes in. Okay, so now we're going to create entities, and you do that just by going to create. You can pick what kind, friendly, neutral, or opposing, and then you can place them anywhere in plan view. It's also helpful if you go into one of the 3D views in place, because that way you can put them at any elevation, anywhere on the terrain. This is also good for if you want to go into tunnels or inside buildings, to put them in 3D and then navigate to where you want them to be. We found it easiest just to right click on the entity from any view and click on plan, and then it comes right up. Alright, so here we have the plans for the friendlies. We start out with the police, who are to wander using a behave task for about 20 seconds in a particular area before moving outside the compound. When the car bomb attacks, if either the friendlies or neutrals are killed, any of them, they all send a request to the dismounted infantry outside the village to come in and help them out as far as the attack. Then they have another behave task to flee from the car bomb. The DI guys, when they get that message, they mount inside the vehicles, and then they go inside the village, and they, along with the wheeled vehicles, take out any hostiles that they see and then patrol the area. We also have a task for the one UAV we have that's in the air, but then it quickly malfunctions and has to return to the base and gives that message to everyone else that it has malfunctioned. For the hostile plans, we start with the Taliban 2, which is much like Taliban 3 and 4, the 3 that go up on top of the building to attack. And once they get the message that the car bomb has been armed, they move to the hold point, and then once the car bomb attacks and explodes itself, then they move outside and they start to attack everybody they see, both the friendly force and the neutral force. So you see we have the rules of engagement. Before they have the attack, they just have fired when fired upon. Once they're ready to attack, it's switched to fire at will. The suicide bomber again gets into position once he gets the message for the car bomb being armed, and then once the car bomb explodes, then it moves in to also explode itself. So it triggers off of the car bomb being exploded. Then the car bomb, that just moves to a particular waypoint, and when the Taliban on the tower gives the message, it moves into position, and then it detonates. For the neutral entities, the plans weren't that complicated. We had a group of chickens who basically had the task of moving from waypoint to waypoint and waiting about 10 seconds in between each movement. We also had some entities on bikes that communicated through text message, which seemed to be the best way of communicating between neutrals. And then afterwards they would all move to a particular waypoint. And then we had a civilian who would talk using DI guy animation indefinitely. For the rest of the neutrals, we had them spawning from one point and then disappearing in another point, just to create that traffic of them walking through, but they had no plans other than to flee once the attack came. Here we have various areas in green, routes in red, and then waypoints that are just the white blocks. The areas were good when we wanted actions triggered off of entities being in certain areas. For instance, when the police recruits got into one of the green areas, that triggered the attack to start. The routes were when we wanted a certain entity to go in a particular direction or path. And the waypoints were good just for holding points. For instance, when we were getting the opposing forces into certain positions, we used the waypoints for them to get there. Also, when the military got into the village, they went from waypoint to waypoint in order to patrol the area. Alright, now there are just a couple of things to consider when building your scenario. Actually, while you're running it, it might help if you run multiple windows, and you just do that by going down to File and then New Window. And this helps to see different vantage points simultaneously while you're running the scenario. Also, in the Behave menu, you have an option to look at the path data, and you see that's all in the blue and in the purplish color, and you can see where life forms and vehicles can go all across your terrain. Also, if you look at the Behave debug lines, that shows exactly where your entities can move throughout your terrain, which might explain some of the movement, especially abnormal movement you might see within the running of the scenario. As far as communication goes, the friendly, opposing, and neutral forces can speak amongst themselves quite easily. The system is pre-programmed to do that. However, if you're trying to communicate across forces, be it friendly to opposing or neutral to friendly, there would be some additional Lua script required to make that happen. Also, with the friendly and opposing, it seems they can communicate just fine through any type of messaging or talking to each other. However, it seems with neutrals, your best bet is to go text messaging. For some reason, that appeared to work better than the other forms of communication. Some other things to note are when you have conditional statements, if you want the condition to be checked multiple times, then you need to use the when statement as opposed to the if statement. The if statement checks that condition exactly once and that's it, whereas the when statement will check it, and if it's not true, it goes through the rest of the plan, but it does eventually return back to that statement and keeps checking it until the condition turns true. To make for a smoother scenario run, it's best to turn off all the visuals, such as the explosions and the smoke and fire and even entity labels and things such as that. Also, you want to rewind your scenario all the way back before saving. Otherwise, if you were to save, let's say, a minute and a half into the project, it would save it at that time and wouldn't allow you to return back. You would have to delete that file and use the original one. You also want to plan your actions and reactions for each of your entities ahead of time. Figuring out this logic before creating the entity plans will ensure that things run a lot smoother, make more sense, and things of that nature. Also, ensure that your computer is capable of running the software if you do intend on creating your scenarios off campus. Otherwise, you'll have a very choppy video or running of the scenario, as you may have seen in this video, or sometimes it won't even run at all. It just gets haywire on you. And that's the presentation. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.